Living in the modern world, in a modern country, is amazing. In fact, it's so amazing and we take things so for granted that we just have a lack of gratitude. And I think that lack of gratitude living in the modern world is a virus. So what is the vaccine to this virus? Well, the vaccine is very simple. It's called traveling to another country, preferably a poorer country, and experiencing life there. You see, when you do that, things just fade away. All of a sudden, your gratitude for toilet paper skyrockets. You realize that smelling just a regular air is great. You're not smelling smoky smog all the time. You realize that having clean running water is amazing. You watch consumerism in another country and you just think, wow, things are a little different back here. Back in the good old United States. I wonder, we don't need all those things that I thought I needed. Or you look at people who are just busy and in a hurry and you start wondering, what are they busy or in a hurry for? They're just tending a chicken farm. And all of a sudden, all these things just fade away because you have the vaccine of seeing things from another perspective and going to another country. And yet, for how amazing it is, not many people actually travel to another country. And if they do, they sure don't go to a poorer country. And if they do go to a poorer country, they just go to the touristy spots and don't actually get to experience it. It's a pretty hard vaccine to acquire, I'm talking about here. But I think it's absolutely worth it. My most recent trip was about 3 years ago. I'm about ready for a booster to this vaccine. And this most recent trip was to Kolkata, India. Now, India, it's a big perspective shift compared to some other countries. But once you go there and once you experience it, everything is just radically different. You just realize how much you're missing and you have a whole different perspective of life. And I believe if you go to pretty much any poor country that has just a totally different culture than what you're used to, you're going to have a perspective shift. And you're going to get the vaccine to the lack of gratitude and the entitlement feeling that we have in the United States or in some other modern countries. You see, in modern countries, we have so many of the basics taken care of, but we still have to worry about something. You see, when all your basics needs are cared for, then now you start worrying about how to make a semi-basic need become an even bigger need. You just make a mountain out of a molehill. You make something that's maybe somewhat important, super duper important. But if you're living in a country and you don't have regular food and you're just grabbing the chickens from your backyard and eating those and that's your sustenance, then you aren't really worried about GMOs and organic food and making sure chicken health and safety is important. You're just grabbing the chicken in your backyard. And so many things that we get all worked up about in the United States, whether it's a political thing or a activist thing or just regular life and consumerism or just the way we treat normal things, the way we spend our money, everything just shifts when you go to a different country. As I said, this is probably going to be my least popular videos because pretty much no one likes talking about how bad things are. Like I said, this is probably going to be my least popular video because no one really likes hearing about how good they actually have it. They just want to be told of how bad things are. But I'm here to tell you, if you want to be cured of this terrible sickness of entitlement, of not enjoying the incredible life that you have, you might just want to go visit and see what someone else is up to, and you might just be cured. So if you do that, here's 5 things I think you'll notice and 5 things that I think will be part of this vaccine. And if you do it, or even if you just take a moment and think about it, I think you might enjoy your life just a little bit more. So first one, gratitude. Gratitude is something I talk about a lot. There's a whole gratitude wall behind me. And gratitude is just one of the most powerful things in the world because it's all about perspective. You look at something and you can enjoy it, or you can look at something and you can hate it. And if you choose to enjoy it and you notice the good things, you tend to notice more good things, and then life is just better. That's it in essence. And I believe that gratitude starts with realizing that the great God who created us actually loves us, and gratitude starts there. So if you don't have that piece in place, it might be a little bit harder to be grateful. But when you go to another country and you realize that the toilet paper doesn't flush sometimes, and that you can't brush your teeth with running water, and that it smells like cow patties all the time, and that the cars are really bumpy and really annoying, and that it's hard to travel anywhere, and that you don't have all the food options, and the food options you do have are okay, and you just experience life, and there's dust everywhere, and it just smells awful, and there's people running around, and it's not fun, and you realize, wow, I could have been born here, and I could just be enjoying this. And a lot of these people actually look kind of happy. They're actually enjoying it. I'm not saying it's perfect. There's a lot of problems. There's a lot of alcoholism in the area I went to specifically, but all of a sudden you just have gratitude for the things you might have been complaining about. Instead of complaining about your landlord not fixing the toilet seat, you start realizing, wow, I could be a little nicer in how I approach that. Or wow, I actually have a washer and dryer, even if it gets really loud and makes an annoying noise. You see, the higher the standard of living, the more picky you get. And the lower your standard of living, the more content you seem to be. And so if you just take away the need to have an even higher standard of living that's not really possible, then you get very content with where you're at. So I think that's one of the single biggest things you get from traveling to another country. is you just have a lot of gratitude. Gratitude for immaterial things like freedom, and gratitude for material things like toilet paper. I talked about this a little bit, but the second thing is the perspective of money. Because you realize that these people, in the grand scheme of things, yeah, they're running a software business or giving people haircuts or just doing a basic job like we would in the United States or another modern country, and yet they just have enough money for what they need. Yeah, in the grand scheme of things, we would call them poor, but they have the money that they need. They do their work, and they have food, and they have a place to live, and they have family, and it's great. Of course, their standard of living is a lot lower, but they seem to enjoy life just fine. I'm not saying it's perfect. Obviously, there's a bunch of things. Nobody has it perfect on this planet. But in general, they seem to just enjoy it at what level they're at. And so when we raise the level of living and we still aren't content, it just goes to show you it does not matter what level of living you're at, you can still be content wherever you're at. And so you just realize you don't need $10,000 more a month. You don't need a raise. Yeah, it might be nice to have it. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but you don't have to live trying to make it happen. I just think of how many people have a hobby that's all about making money, and they go do it, or they do the side job or work on the weekend or work overtime trying to just get more money because they think money is going to escape the trap they're in. But if they just enjoyed where they were at and just enjoyed life and didn't spend their money on dumb things, they'd be fine. So I think that perspective is something you get when you go to another country. Everyone's working for something. And the less you work, and you work an amount, and you're not lazy, but you don't try and work too much, and you find that sweet balance, the better life can be, no matter what culture you're in. The third thing is busyness. I just found it very fascinating and very amusing and very great for my life perspective to just look at all of these people that are just busy. And I'm staring at these people as they're just busy, zooming around, doing all this stuff, and I'm wondering, like, what? Why? I mean, yeah, you get money, yeah, you're some cool software guy, or you gotta get this person here, or you gotta make this delivery and get some more money. But in the grand scheme of things, when you look at busyness in another culture, it's just amusing. And I know that when they come and visit us and see all of our busyness, it's amusing to them too. And you just realize that busyness is just this really dumb thing. And you can be as busy as you want and think it's the most important thing in the world, but the only thing that really matters are relationships. Relationships, of course, with your creator, and relationships with the created people around you. And it's just good to get that perspective every once in a while. And I think when you go to another country, you get that perspective. You also get the perspective that they do things a little bit slower. Maybe they're not as on time, or they just live life slower, and they get to enjoy life instead of trying to get more things, trying to enjoy life through that, but they actually don't get to do it because they're trying so hard, blah, 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 whatever. Basically, it's just good going to another culture because you realize your own busyness, how it looks to somebody else, and you realize that sometimes the other perspective of just slowing down is actually a pretty good perspective. Okay, this next one is a little bit interesting, and it's politics. You just kind of realize when you go to another country how trivial politics are. Obviously, they're important. I'm not saying they're not important, and if you have a right to vote, you should vote, and there's things that you should be passionate about. But in general, it was just fascinating noticing how worked up these people are getting about really dumb things. And they're probably looking at us, seeing how worked up we get about some really dumb things. And you just realize kind of how trivial all of it is. Now, there's things that are very important. For example, there's activist things like fighting to get children out of poverty. I think no matter what culture you're in, it's a great, admirable thing. It's something I'm passionate about. But there's also things that maybe we're activist and excited and passionate about that just don't matter as much. So for example, I'm thinking of like the environmental cause. I think there's a lot of great elements of it, and it's led to some cool innovation. But if you think about how much work people are putting into putting solar panels on their house, or trying to save the environment, or keep cows from farting, or whatever. And then you look over at another country and you realize that they're literally burning their trash. Like, they're burning their trash, and the sky is full of smoke all the time, and just massive amounts of fumes are just coming up from burning trash. I don't think if you drive an electric car one time a week, you're gonna save the environment. I just think there's things like that. Now, environment, that's an easy one to poke fun at, but there's so many other things that maybe we get all worked up about and try and get all passionate about, and you realize it's not going to do anything when a whole other country is living like this and they're 3 to 4 times our population. So there's things like that I think are just a good perspective, and you realize all of a sudden that politics, yeah, they're important. It's how the world works, and there's some life or death things that are involved and worldview issues that are very important, but overall, things can get a little trivial when you see it from a different perspective. Finally, number 5, I've used this word a lot already, but it just helps your perspective. It just makes you think. It makes you realize, is the way of driving we do actually better? I think it is. Or it makes you think, is actually showing up late to a bunch of things an okay way to live? Maybe. It makes you think. So I think one of the best parts going out of the country, going to a poorer country, is just seeing your perspective get challenged. You just see that it works. Maybe it's not better, but it does work another way. And you realize that maybe some of the things you're fighting so hard for just don't matter. And maybe some of the things you are fighting for actually matter more than you thought they did. And it's a good perspective shift. It makes you realize that everyone's going at busy things that nobody's going to remember 2 years from now, 2 days from now. And it just makes you think about life a little bit more importantly. As I said earlier, it makes you think about, okay, what's the most important thing? Well, knowing your creator. And what's the second most important thing? Treating the people around you, the relationships around you, treating them with respect and caring about them. Those are the things that are timeless. So I think going to another country, it helps you remember that. You're not just going for sightseeing and seeing awe and wonder and cool cultures. You're actually shifting your perspective, and you're becoming a lot more grateful for what you have. And so that's 5 reasons I think you should try and go out of the country. Of course, like I said, if you've watched this far, you're probably one of the few, because this is a very unpopular video, and just people kind of get bored thinking about how they should be less entitled and how they should have more gratitude for what they have. So if you stuck with this far, I appreciate it. Thank you. And just remember, even if you do take the vaccine of heading out of the country, you do have to get a booster shot. And mine's coming up.